Rahman.
Walaikum assalam, sir. Sangalde.
Bakhair, Jor Takra.
Everything is good.
Nice
Good to
seeing
hear
you
you,
after
sir.
a long time. Looking good, buddy. Take
Thank
care.
you, sir. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. You do the same.
सर शुरू करते हैं मेरा ख्याल है अब।
Okay.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Sir Javed is from G5. He graduated in 1972 in Aerospace Engineering, served in various field, depot, instructional, R&D, command and staff assignments till his retirement in 2000 as an Air Commodore. These included being the pioneer member of STD, SC of 11 Squadron, OC Engg Sargodha, head of AE Department at CAE, and Deputy CPD JF17 project. He earned his master's in Aeronautical Engineering from USAF Institute of Technology and his PhD in Aerospace Engineering from Texas A&M University. He is Fellow of Royal Aeronautical Society, Fellow of Institute of Engineers Pakistan, and Associate Fellow of AIAA. He is also a Program Evaluator for Engineering Accreditation Commission and Engineering Technology Accreditation Commission at ABET. He has served on AIAA Journal of Aircraft Editorial Advisory Board and Applied Aerodynamics, Fluid Dynamics, and Atmospheric Flight Mechanical Technical Committee of AIAA. He has been on the faculty of Aerospace Engineering Department at Tuskegee University, Alabama since 2000. He is serving as department head since 2011. His research focuses on experimental aerodynamics and engineering/STM education. He has received several $1 million in research grants from NSF, Department of Defense, Army, and NASA. He has presented and published his research in international conferences, proceedings, and professional journals. Thank you very much, sir. With this impressive introduction, I hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Alauddin. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you all for the opportunity to be able to talk to you on this topic. And I'm particularly impressed and indebted to Salauddin, who has taken the mantle on and, keeps getting people who can give their views and ideas to this forum of elite professionals who themselves have achieved a lot. So I would like to, of course, thank Salauddin for this introduction. There are actually two assignments that I am particularly proud of in my career in the Air Force. The first one and the foremost one is having had the opportunity to serve as the department head of the Aerospace Engineering Department at CAE, because nothing can be a greater honor than going back to your alma mater and be part of it as an instructor, as a teacher. And of course, the second highlight that I think of my career is having had the opportunity to serve as the Deputy Chief Project Director Aerospace for the JF17 program and contribute a little bit to this project of great national importance. So my is slightly different than many that you have heard so far, which were, quite, I would say, technical in nature, like those about risk technologies and some other, very impressive engineering technologies. But I chose this topic for a reason, and that reason is this change, which I call, which is happening, which has happened rapidly and happening even now in what I call the changing landscape of education in general and engineering education in particular. So I'm going to consider three prominent aspects of this landscape. The first one is the changing curriculum landscape of engineering education. And the second one is the changing characteristics of educators in general and engineering educators in particular. And the third aspect of this landscape is the changing character of the modality of delivery of learning materials to the students. So these are three areas that I'm going to talk about, of course, based on my experiences. All of you who are attending today, and thank you for that, have extensive experiences yourself. Actually, I am a very strong believer that most of us reach our, knowledge levels, experiences levels in about 15, 20 years. And then there's pretty much a plus minus sigma difference between our experiences and our understanding of things. So I consider all of you, at least in many ways better than me, because you are in a different environment and doing much different things, more challenging things than probably I'm doing right now. So let me first go ahead and talk about the way the curriculum landscape has changed over the years as far as engineering education is concerned. And please forgive me, because of course, many of the things that I'll be talking about will be through the lens of my personal experience, which is that of aerospace engineering. And as I will comment somewhere along the line, that it may be slightly different as far as, let's say, computer science engineering is concerned, or some other engineering activities are concerned, engineering education areas are concerned. So the evolution of engineering education can be broadly divided into three historical phases. The first one, and the dates of these phases are debatable. I mean, it can be plus minus 10 years here or there, but typically these are the three phases. There was a phase when there was a focus on engineering practice. Industrial apprenticeships were, considered as part of engineering education, and faculty with industrial experience were sought after and were the primary teachers at this phase. I think some elements of this are still present in some European engineering education programs, but here in the US, it went out of vogue in the second phase, especially when people like von Karman, who was considered to be the father of fluid dynamics, for example, who was an Hungarian, and he started teaching at Caltech and set up the Jet Propulsion Lab at Caltech. And then Timoshenko, who was a Ukrainian, and everyone, well, those of us who are in, at least in aerospace engineering and instructors are aware of Timoshenko beam theory, etc. And then, of course, there was Westergaard, who was a Danish civil engineer. So these people like them had profound impact on the teaching of engineering in the United States, and they brought in a lot of mathematical-based understanding to the curriculum in engineering. So in the second phase, the focus to engineering sciences and the fundamental understanding of phenomenon. So the focus on practice kind of went down, and the focus on understanding fundamental phenomena came up, and the faculty got more involved in research. And this phase was given impetus by the abundance of federal dollars available to universities now because of the Cold War, and the USSR, the erstwhile USSR, having launched successfully the Sputnik, and then Kennedy's promise to land man on the moon. So the universities, of course, wanted these research dollars, and so there was more emphasis on engineering sciences and research. This has continued for a while, but in the last, I would say, 15 years to 2 decades, the emphasis started to shift back because the industry started feeling that the graduates that are coming out of the universities no longer have the abilities or the skills to function as engineers. They were having great, analytical strengths, but they lacked skills like teamwork, communication, integration, systems integration, design, manufacturing, etc. And so, the pendulum has swung back towards the first phase. Of course, not exactly the same, but some additions to and subtraction from that part. Industrial experiences, faculty are encouraged now to go and work at different industries during their summer, I would say summer months. Students are, encouraged to go on internships into different industries and so on. But the focus has come back to more of engineering practice while maintaining analytical strength. So of course, this is a handful for students to be able to do both and juggle it well. So with this background, as far as the landscape of the curriculum has changed over the years, I come to the next peak, which is or the next mountain range in this landscape, or whatever you want to call it, which is the traditional, the role of the teacher. So all of us have experienced, an undergraduate education, of course, have experienced teachers who were experts at putting us to sleep in the classroom with their beautiful, monotonous, droning voice. And we would be rudely awakened by a pop quiz lying on our table, not knowing what to do with that. But then there were teachers, who with their explanations and their total, involvement of the classroom, we would be engrossed in what they were explaining to us, and even the most difficult of the concepts, and we would not, feel the time pass by. So those were the kind of teachers that we have also seen. And of course, when I started teaching, I said, and when I went back to the CAE, to teach, I said, well, I'm not going to be one of those teachers who is going to make sure that the class goes to sleep. I'm going to be the one who's really going to keep the class active and involved, et cetera, et cetera. But frankly speaking, I really had no understanding of how all this works. And so, of course, I didn't have enough time over there to be able to really understand what goes on as to how people learn. And when I started my academic career in the US, I really started looking at this aspect so that I can become a good teacher. Anyways, the traditional role of the teacher has not changed much in the majority of the cases. So I have a painting here. It's from the 17th century, or no, 14th century. And we have this, professor standing at the rostrum, delivering his wisdom to the students, and the students sitting over there, you can see are the typical students of today. Some are talking to each other, others have, resigned to their fate and have gone to sleep. Much has changed in many of the classrooms. Now, of course, as things progressed, here's an interesting painting from the late 19th century. And it was thought that, the professor is going to be this person sitting, churning out knowledge, and the students would have these headphones and all this knowledge would be going into their heads through some magic over there, typically called the transmittal mode. Of course, things have not changed much since then. So here's a great example of a professor again, with this humongous board behind him, and this group of captive students over there. They can't do anything. They can't run away from the class. They have to sit and listen to this man drone on and on. And this model of teaching or learning was being a sage on the stage. You had all the wisdom, and the people sitting in front of you, had to listen to your wisdom and just absorb it in some way, like a sponge or something like that. So there was little thought which was going on into how people learn. And so there has been a lot of research done in this area in the US primarily, because the US started having this big issue of retaining students in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And there was an issue of students dropping out, So of course, there have been education psychologists who have worked on this for a long time, but the engineering faculty was never involved in something like this. The best thing was that you were doing your PhD and you were hired as a teaching assistant, and you helped your professor, your research professor, grade his tests, his exams, and also go to the class and maybe do the lab with them or thing like that. So that was the basic kind of experience that young PhDs would get. And when they would go into the faculty, and start teaching, that was the model that they had. But combining engineering education, educationists, and bringing in education psychologists, the engineering faculty started to learn more and more about how people learn and how especially engineering students learn. And so the landscape of the professors, the faculty started to change, and they started to think slightly differently. And they had to learn interesting things like learning theories. What is behaviorism, which was Skinner is one of the famous persons bringing that, which is for passive learning. What is constructivism? You build on prior knowledge. And Piaget, who is famous for the development of children, and Vygotsky, again, very famous for his work. His idea about the zone of proximal development is very well known, how people build on their prior knowledges, et cetera, which brought in the concept of active learning. And of course, going from behaviorism to cognitivism, which is what's happening in the brain and so on. So they had to learn about these different theories. I had to learn it, to try to understand how students learn. And here's some comparison, between these three. So in behaviorism, the learner is reactive or passive. In cognitism, the learner is proactive. He's processing the information. He's organizing new information with pre-existing schemas in his brain. And of course, in constructivism, again, the learner is more proactive, and he's learning how to interpret information applying to their own reality. So the learning constantly moves on. And please feel free to stop me to, ask any questions or comment on it. Mostly, I hope that, it develops into a discussion of those who are interested in these kinds of things. So there have been, as I said, a lot of research.
I have one question.
Yes.
Sir, as you have mentioned that we have to be focused on the student centric, and we are more focused on we are not focused on how the teacher is teaching, but how the students are learning. So how you basically adapt yourself so that you exactly know how much students have the understanding, and you adapt the way he learns. So because every student learns his own way. Some learn by pictures, some learn by words. So, so how you get a quick feedback from the students that how they are learning, and what is their effective way of learning, or like active learning you mentioned.
Exactly. So of course, interacting with humans, that interaction is a highly non-linear process. And those of you who have still some remembrance of our differential equations, non-linear differential equations are a are a beast, a slight change in the initial conditions and the result goes totally to a different place. But typically, it is, some of the best practices in this area are that whatever, your the concept that you're discussing, the topic you're discussing should be multimodal. So it should be, and there is this theory of learning styles of students, verbal learning styles and visual learning styles and, hands-on learning styles, etc. So your learning environment should be multimodal in the sense that you are reaching out to the different students, different learning style students in a manner that they remain engaged in what you're trying to for them to learn. One of the important things, in my opinion, in which I always try to use, obviously that is not possible in large classrooms and all these, techniques or topics of active learning and so on, they are not easy to use in large classrooms. They require smaller classrooms and more intensive interaction between the teacher and the student. But one of the things that I really use is using formative assessments of the students as compared to the final assessment of the students. So and those formative assessments, we have all gone through that, but in my opinion, I never actually in the past used them to understand what are the issues with the students. So the pop quizzes that we used to get or we give to our students, serves that purpose of formative assessment, that you find out, okay, it's not that they should get that's 20% of the grade, but they actually should be used by the teacher to see what conceptual areas the students are having difficulty with it. If everyone is unable to draw, let's say the free body diagram, I'm giving an example of statics, or most of the students are unable to see that a roller support can have only one force and not two, then that means there is some conceptual error which is going on. And so we should use these assessments, these formative assessments that we give, and these include what we call 1-hour tests, for example. Yes, you use the grades to determine their final grade, but we as teachers must use them to assess as to what are the issues that the students are having, and not just giving them a grade and say, hey, this problem is wrong or that problem is wrong. So at least that's how I would look at it. There are many other concepts like the muddy point concept, and you ask them, okay, which point you didn't understand today, just give me 1 point, and that's how you kind of poll the students as to what is going on. But these are the different techniques. I hope that answers the question, or somewhat.
Ji sir, mashallah, I think we shared the same experience. We like to engage the students every time, and we want to be really active. लेकिन सर जो कुछ challenges I feel एक physical classroom environment है और एक आजकल जैसे trend है online education का.
Right.
So I'm doing a lot of research in online education,
right.
where we want to keep those student learning
right.
and engaging.
Right.
Both. And I've done a lot of research on at MS level.
Okay.
That how we can engage these online. So if you have some experience of online education, how to engage the students. So that's a challenging task these days.
Okay.
So you can share
right.
yours.
I'll come to that. Right. So I'll come to that topic. When I come to the landscape of the modality of delivery, and we can have a discussion there.
Right. Thank you.
So here, the National Academy is at this large report in which they said that if the students are not engaged in their initial understanding, they may fail to grasp new concepts and so on. So there was the reason why I'm putting up these references. There's a lot of work that has been going on here in the U.S. at least, to improve the teaching component of this enterprise of learning and education. So, here is a taxonomy that we all, those of us who teach, are aware of, and that's how we should design our teaching on. We build on knowledge, and then we keep on going to the higher levels, and where you go to analysis and synthesis and evaluation, which are the critical thinking components of education, which it really is the objective of education. The top tier of this pyramid is where we should be striving that our students are. They should be able to analyze, they should be able to synthesize, and they should be able to evaluate, ideas which are in confrontation to each other, which one is better, what are the issues, the pros and cons. So those are the critical thinking components of education. Of course, every class, every topic that you teach, you can grade it into this pyramid, which is of course called Bloom's taxonomy, and design your teaching experience or a teaching environment based on this. Many of us who are very experienced, they subconsciously do that. Those of us who are not experienced have to consciously design our learning environment on something like this. Now, how do you engage students? So, or what are the components of academic, let's say, success? There are typically 3 pillars to it: engagement, motivation, and self-efficacy. And I'll just briefly touch upon each one of them as to how, over the years, these different components have been changing. Of course, we know that a typical lecture classroom does little to engage you unless the teacher really is trying something, or motivate you, or build the self-confidence in you. But a little bit about self-efficacy. So self-efficacy is the belief in one's capability to organize and execute the courses of action. This is a very important concept as far as learning is concerned. If a student does not have self-efficacy, which is, some people like to call it self-confidence, if that, that's something that you want to think it is, that the student, the teaching learning environment must give that self-confidence to the student, that he or she is able to do what is being asked. Yes, they have to make an effort to do it, but at the end of the day, they'll be able to do it, and they are not, demotivated by the learning environment, by the attitude of the teacher, by the learning material that are provided to them, that they're demotivated to do anything, and they say, hey, this is beyond me, I can't do anything. This is the concept, which a lot of research has gone into, and especially, certain areas. For example, research shows, educational research shows, for example, that female students have low self-efficacy as far as math is concerned, in many of the countries of the world. And so, why did this happen? And there are, research materials available as to how to improve upon these things. But this is one of the areas that we as teachers have to look at and have started to look at. And so we are changing our attitudes towards, the learning environment, the teaching and learning environment. The other very important component is engagement. As Nasser was talking about, how do you engage students, So we have these 3 components: cognitive engagement, behavioral engagement, and emotional engagement. And so whatever learning environment you're developing, whether it's a face-to-face learning environment, whether it's a excuse me, online learning environment, or it is a hybrid environment, how do you engage the students? So what is behavioral engagement? Well, students comply with the ground rules, and they come to class, and they do not create a problem in the class, and don't try to bog you down into asking irrelevant questions, etc., and which we have done when we were students, of course. If the instructor, the teacher, the professor, did not have academic control of the class, it can become an issue, behavioral engagement. And of course, low efficacy students involved in poor behavioral engagement in the class. And then there's emotional engagement, that students experience positive reactions as they are enjoying the class, they are interested in it, and they have a sense of belonging. We all have an emotional engagement as far as the CAE professional society is concerned. And then, of course, there is cognitive engagement. So students are invested in their learning and they seek to go beyond the stated reactions and enjoy the challenge. So the design, your learning environment design has to take into consideration how do you engage students in these three dimensions, which lead to success. What do we mean by cognitive engagement, and what should be the elements of a cognitively engaging learning environment? Well, it should be authentic. Should be related to real life. We all say let's give real life experiences, to our engineering students. It should have an element of inquiry. So you should be involving your students in, let's say, collecting data or giving them data and letting them analyze the data or interpreting the data and so on. There should be collaborative teamwork. And of course, technology plays a great role in how you can have some active learning and authentic tasks in your learning environment. Now, we have put these two triangles side by side. So on the right-hand side, we have the Bloom's taxonomy, and I have inverted it. And on the left-hand side, we have this triangle with passive learning and active learning. And all of us have learned or read somewhere that, tell me to read and I'll remember only 10% of it, and let me see and I'll remember 50% of it, and let me do it and I'll remember 90% of it. So these two triangles are, you can see the relationship that passive learning is happening in the lower levels of your teaching environment, which is knowledge, comprehension, and application. That's a passive learning component of it. But active learning comes in when you ask them to analyze, when you ask your students to synthesize, and when you ask your students to evaluate. And so that's how the learning environment design is changing with time. And many of us are trying to do that. But of course, as I mentioned to you, this is not an easy task, because if the class sizes are large, then it is extremely difficult to come up with something like this. And this is one of the biggest issues as far as online learning is concerned, engagement. So the way the landscape as far as teaching is concerned, being on the other side of the classroom, is that it was being a sage on the stage, and everyone is listening to you, and you're going nonstop the whole 50 minutes, like I'm going here. But then from there, it has moved to a model which is called a guide on the side. So you involve students in all these active learning tasks, and they're doing group work or collaborative teamwork, and they're building on their knowledge experiences, and you're standing on the side and maybe guiding them occasionally as to what to do. But more recently, a new model is developing, which is called meddler in the middle. So yeah, they're doing their own work, but you are there and you meddle in their work. You kind of challenge them to do something different or at a higher level and so on. So this is how the landscape of the learning environment has transitioned over the years to improve education and engineering education. And we can relate this to what we do as engineers. And which is online revolution. And the online revolution has shown us that, of course, it is accessible, it's supposed to be affordable, and it's flexible. That's why there is this great move and shift towards this. However, this is fraught with a lot of pitfalls, and as Nasser pointed out, that there are some challenges over there. So I'll just quickly go over those challenges. So Here is a one-word response cloud to online learning, one of the research papers that was presented in 2011 as to what do students think about, what do they mean by, or what is their reaction, one-word reaction to online learning. And you can see all these different responses, which are interesting, you know, opportunity, boring, unreliable, advancement is there. You know, it's easy. Somebody has put Google over there, you know, it's freedom, it's informal. Others have said, oh, cheating is rampant over there, you know, so it makes you lazy and so on. So, you know, there are all these dimensions to online learning that we as teachers have to be cognizant of and understand the research that has been done in this area and try to design our learning experiences so that we are aware of the reactions of the students or how they feel about online learning.
Sir,
So
if you allow me,
yes,
I can add here.
yes, please.
जैसे आपने कहा कि there are a lot of challenges. I mean, we try to mimic the physical presence there by switching on cameras and everything. But the major challenge is in the assessment, online assessment, because there are anti-cheating softwares which basically record your screen,
Don't work.
record your camera, mic, everything, and even don't
Yeah.
allow freeze your application also.
Yes.
I think the assessment, I mean, recently we have experiences that online there's a lot of cheating going on.
Yes.
I mean, even we
You are very
emphasize on
correct.
ethics, but people do cheat when they get the
Right.
opportunity.
Right. You're very correct. You know, that's a major issue, and I will come to that in a minute.
Yes.
So, and that's my biggest, you know, one of my, well, there are many other, you know, beefs I have with it, but that's one of the large ones. And it's not, you know, only me or you, you know, the US Air Force Academy has had a big issue of cheating, you know. A number of universities have had, you know, great issues with it. Purdue University has had some issues with it. Texas A&M University. I mean, universities all over the US have had great issues, and it has been in the media, you know, as to what is going on. So here it's right there, you know, the students think it's easy to teach in an internet-based course, you know. Those who attend classes in traditional classroom setting perform better than those who take classes online. And these are the students' responses, you know. Students do not have the discipline. Online environment is not, they do not use as many of their senses, you know. Attention is divided when they're listening and, you know, doing other things, you know, you tend to do other things. And more importantly, students learn through their interactions with faculty and fellow students. So the online revolution has gone a bit sour. Is that correct? You know, here is some data and you can make your own, you know, judgments about it. So online courses have up to 20% lower retention rates in traditional classroom environments. 40 to 80% online students drop out of online classes. Where they have, you know, that may not be the case, for example, in Pakistan, because there's a big premium on, you know, completing your degree. That may not be the case, but that's not the case here in the US, you know. Students at lower learning level at college are at higher risk of dropping out than upper level students. And there is self-efficacy beliefs of these learners. So here is that, you know, how students learn kind of component coming in over there, that they are unable to self-regulate and so on, and so they drop out. So next big change in the landscape that took place was MOOCs. And MOOCs said that they are going to democratize education. It'll be available to everyone in the world. And it's true, you know, there are thousands of courses now available free of cost from, you know, big universities, MIT and Stanford and Purdue and I don't know, God knows all the universities, you know. And of course, there are these companies like Udemy and so on who give all these different courses. And the New York Times, for example, in 2012, declared 2012 as the year of the MOOC. However, I'll put up this graph over here. Is known as the Gartner graph, and so it tells you, that when there is a technology trigger, there is this. People think that here is a disruptive technology. There is this peak of inflated expectations or the hype, and that was this hype that MOOCs, created in 2012, and when in 11 actually they came out in 2012, but very quickly, MOOCs have gone down into the trough of disillusionment, and now they are slowly coming back up with more realistic expectations of what MOOCs can achieve, and so on. So let me just kind of give you some statistics on this. So there was a study which was done, the edX MOOCs, which is Harvard and MIT, and they looked at the years from 2014 to 2018, and they looked at over 5.5 million learners and 12.5 million course registrations, and they found a dismal rate of course completion. So you can look at the percentages. 2014 and 15, only 6% completed a course. In 15, 16, only 4% completed a course on the average. And in 2017 and 18, only 3% completed a course. So they said that the strategy that depends on bringing new learners, if the institutions cannot support learners in converting their time and financial investment into completing a course, then what are they trying to achieve over here? And if you look at, for example, the 2017-18 enrollment, I'm sorry, there's a digit missing over here. 68% were from highly developed countries, while only 1.4% were from countries with low human development index. So where is the democratizing of education? Their assessment was that MOOCs are primarily as a complementary asset for learners within existing systems. So MOOCs have lost their, they are being, the thing to go to. This graph clearly shows, how the second year enrollment would drop in a course. So, they would drop from, let's say, 1.1 million, and the next year only 129,000 would be the people would have registered in a course in the next course, and the next year even lower. So you can see this dramatic drop and dramatic low retention as far as MOOCs are concerned. So this is something for us to consider when we're looking at going into online learning and looking at the reasons behind why this is happening. And again, the reasons, when I say reason, we have to see why students are dropping out and understand how students learn, and how students learn in a face-to-face environment, and how they're learning in a face-to-face environment. Is that applicable to learning in an online environment, or you need some additional things going on in the online environment? So it's a research-rich area as far as engineering education is concerned. Number of causes for low completion: cognitive burdens, social identity threat, etc. Here's another graph, and this is from a research study of over 2.5 years, and they looked at 250,000 students, and it was done by MIT and Stanford and Purdue, and a number of researchers. And their hypothesis was that interventions would produce medium to large effects in students' retention, but their experience was, and it's the researchers' experience, it was a depressing, frustrating, and deflating experience that whatever we were trying to do didn't achieve the results. There's evidence that state-of-the-art machine learning methods can improve individualized intervention policies and learning of students. So again, we have to be careful. And of course, Forbes made this remark that MOOCs may already be all they will be, mainly marketing tools and revenue sources for certificate sellers. So here is some of their conclusions of this study. For example, The 6-year saga of MOOCs provide a cautionary tale for education policymakers facing whatever will be the next promoted innovative education technology, be it artificial intelligence or virtual reality or some unexpected new entrant. So new education technologies, require that there should be a change in focus, funding, and so on. So what are the emerging models of these as a result of these MOOCs? You have alternative credentialing, non-degree certificates, and micro-credentials. Udacity, for example, offers nano degrees. edX offers micromasters, and so on. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I would like to qualify everything that I'm saying, that this may not be true for all engineering education or engineering majors. Computer and data science, programming, and software development dominate these offerings because their hands-on experiences are different than hands-on experiences for other people, for other majors. So now we come to remote learning, which is the buzzword for the past at least over a year because of the pandemic. So here is, an example, as Nasser was talking about, a very well-designed remote learning studio. The professor is there and the students have their cameras on and their large screens so that there's a better visual of the students and so on. But how do you engage these students? How do you, bring active learning into an environment like this? It's not an easy task. It's a challenge, a big challenge. And as I mentioned to you, there is still a lot of research going on. Some of the things that are talked about is you should involve them in discussion boards so that there's peer-to-peer interaction, or other projects, team projects, and so on. So it's a challenging environment. Here is the other side. The students are wearing headsets and listening to the professor and so on. So it's eerily, it's eerily the picture that I showed you, earlier, from that 1900 painting, where the students are putting their headsets on, and the professor has this machine where he's cranking, the learning out over there. But I would like to qualify with one example over here, and that is there is an experiment going on which is called the Minerva University, and it is being claimed that it is a successful experiment that is going on, but we have to wait and see. So it could be the highly selective process of the students in this experiment. So for example, they received 225,000 applications from 180 countries, but they admitted only 2% of them, and they're claiming, good interaction and engagement of the students in this environment. So is internet-based learning affecting the quality of engineering or engineers being produced in society? Well, everyone participating in a study, which I've quoted below, believed engineers need hands-on experience and to work in teams to learn analytical skills to become successful engineers. And social skills are needed to be successful. Face-to-face interaction in the classroom provide these skills, while internet-based learning lacks these factors. So we have to think seriously as to how to bring these things in to satisfy the students. Come to the challenges and opportunities. Well, accessibility is an opportunity, but it's a challenge also. Everyone may not be able to access online in a manner that another person could. Poor Wi-Fi connection, not a high quality of laptop having so that they can run everything that they want to. What should be the mode of delivery? It should be synchronous or asynchronous. Hands-on, what to do with the electrical engineering labs. How are you going to do that? Yes, you have simulated circuit labs, but does that provide the students, that ability to, when they go into real life, can they patch up a circuit or not? And teamwork, especially hands-on projects. Yes, you can do design teamwork. I myself have been doing this for the last several years, in which my capstone design team, the capstone design that I do, we are several universities. We are there. Georgia Tech is there. Purdue is there. Clemson, several universities, and our students do a design, build, fly. So all the designing is virtual distributed designing, which is the future. And the manufacturing is also distributed. So different parts are manufactured at different universities. But with the pandemic and remote learning, the manufacturing cannot take place. So a big element of that experience that students get as engineers is lost completely. And finally, the point which Nasser was talking about, assessment of learning is a big challenge. You have all these software, ProctorU and lockdown browser, or all that stuff, and there are webcams and the proctors look at you and so on. But students find a way. I mean, there's this website, I don't know how many of you are aware of it or not, but it's called Chegg, CHEGG, and students whenever they get an exam question, they quickly send it to this website, and there are experienced people sitting over there, and they write an answer or do the problem for you and send it back to you. So this is a big issue as far as assessment of learning is concerned, and that's why online degrees, in my opinion, amongst other factors, one of the factors of online degrees not having the same acceptance for at least entry-level positions primarily is one of them is the integrity of assessment. So giving you with all this background, I leave you with the I'm sorry.
जैसे आप कह रहे थे ना कि online degrees are not accepted. I think probably like Arizona State University, they are giving a degree. Either you study online or physically, they have the same degree, and they don't mention. And the quality of assessment and everything is same.
So I do agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with you, but in my experience so far, there is I have yet to see an accredited, and the accreditation body here is ABET. I'm a program evaluator for ABET programs, where online degrees are accredited by ABET. Now, in some areas, I'm not disputing at all. In some areas there are, and in the future, it may turn out to be that they are, the universities may kind of not indicate whether this was an online degree or this was, a face-to-face on-site degree, and so this distinction can get blurred, and the employers may not know whether the person was, doing an online degree or not. But as I mentioned, that assessment, not only assessment, that's one element of it, but as I mentioned, some of the other aspects of face-to-face learning may not be possible to even simulate, in an online degree. I mean, we are having a serious issue over here. Okay, so how are you going to teach, wind tunnel testing? And I'm giving an example of aerospace engineering, right? I'm going through this issue right now myself, because all our classes are online. How do you teach, wind tunnel testing?
So
I mean, do you show them?
You're right. That's a challenge where you involve physical things, definitely. But in electronics, we try to, simulate the circuits, and they patch the circuit similar way as they do physically. And in the last semester, we have been doing labs, all the virtual labs, where students, and I use Zoom virtual breakout rooms. And we made them in groups and work them in groups, and we can go to any group and talk to them. And it was, more than a physical environment, and total interaction was there. So new technologies are helping definitely to increase the engagement and everything. And I'm also doing the virtual reality thing also, so that they can do experimentation visually, and they can interact with those equipment and everything. So, sir, I think
yes, you are all right. Yeah, you are quite correct in saying that. I'm not at all disputing it. Well, what I'm trying to say is that in some places it's possible, in other places it is not possible. So that's why it's a challenge, and it's an opportunity as well, as to how do you overcome this challenge. Zoom breakout rooms are great. You can, pop into any of the breakout rooms and see how the students are interacting with each other. We are doing the same thing. The professor is on Zoom, and he's showing them that, okay, this is how you install the model, and this is how you connect the different components, et cetera, et cetera. And this is how you take the data. Here is the data collection, and I'm going to send you the data. You analyze the data and interpret the data. So, we're trying to make do with things. And,
Sir, MIT.
You are right.
Like MIT virtual labs, I mean, they are, the student is interacting through screen, but the things are happening at the physical level. Like if he put a resistor,
yes.
So a physical resistor will be put, and all the readings he can make, the physical parameters. And the
Yes.
mention about the wind tunnel, I remember I did my master's in simulation. So the first Boeing 777 was made without, there was no prototype made. It was virtual prototype. And they made the model, and they made the aircraft also. All the wind
Yes.
known by the computer and all the analysis done. And they made the model, and it was perfectly flying. So probably computer
Right.
technology is going to help model everything.
Yes, I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing.
Of the physical things. That's true. That's true.
I'm not absolutely not disagreeing with you, and you are correct. That digital mock-ups are the thing now. There are no more physical mock-ups of complex systems like an aircraft. However, there is still, some debate which is there whether, for example, CFD can predict everything or not. Turbulence modeling is an extremely complex issue, and there are still some challenges in that area. So, so these were the challenges and opportunities that I talked about. I leave you with this saying right there, and at the risk of Irfan, if he's still around and correcting me, it says Shang Deshan Dwo Jong Yu Hu, which means that you really have to. Well, basically, its translation is that you have to climb the mountain several times before you can see the tiger. But it really means is that before you embark on a difficult endeavor like seeing the tiger in the mountain, you have to practice a lot. So before we jump into okay, let's have an online class, or let's have a face-to-face class, or let's do this, you have to really do some thinking, some planning, some understanding of some of the research that has gone into it and what people have determined earlier as to how things should be done, and that will improve your chances of being successful. So with this, I open it up to any more questions or discussions. Again, thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity.
Sir,
Javed Khan,
sir, please.
Nasser को मौका दे दो. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
तो तुम बहुत ज्यादा तुम्हारा जो है ना अंग्रेजी बहुत जबरदस्त है, वो समझ नहीं आ रही है. तो अब मैं सिर्फ ये जावेद खान बड़ा जबरदस्त प्रेजेंटेशन है. मैं सिर्फ एक चीज कह रहा हूँ कि हमने इंजीनियरिंग के फील्ड में ही सिर्फ वी आर प्रोग्रेसिंग, जरा इसको दूसरे वॉक्स ऑफ लाइफ के साथ हमें थोड़ा सा वो कनेक्ट नहीं करना चाहिए. As a matter of fact, I think एक अगले दिन मेरे पास जेंटलमैन मेरा पुराना बरखुरदार है, he's a pilot, क्या नाम, ज़ियास शम्सी, Dr. Zyas Shamsi. He did his PhD and whatever. वो एक ज़माने में he flew one of our missions when he was OC5 squadron. उससे एक बड़ी अच्छी term we were discussing is वो ये अलीगढ़ के सिलसिले में, तो he एक बड़ी अच्छी term coin की उसने. That was edutainment. यानी कि which we've gone through in college. You know, हमारा difference बाकी engineers से क्या है? We have gone through this phenomena of edutainment. You know, where you're getting educated also, you're being trained, conduct of behavioral side, socializing, spirit decor, etc., etc. I mean, वो चीजें जो हैं, maybe online you may miss them out, but still you can do it online too, maybe. But basically, we should not only be focusing on the engineering part of it. एक और technology भी है, and that, because everything is based on technology. So a technique आनी चाहिए. So there are many other techniques related to, any one of your fields. May it be medicine, may it be engineering, may it be anything, political science. So I think engineers should now थोड़ा सा एजुटेनमेंट की तरफ जरूर जाएं. मेरे लिहाज से जो हम भी कर रहे हैं अपना प्लान आउट. I've had discussion with Nasir, I have had discussion with Zia के साथ, and we're going to inshallah form a team, and you are going to be part of it. So ये चीजें जरा सोचो. I mean, particularly in context of our own country, Pakistan, कि यहाँ पे अब हम कहाँ मार खा रहे हैं. अब हमारे ये एरोनॉटिकल इंजीनियर्स, वो लड़का एक को क्या नफीस, उसका नफीस. Now, he left engineering के बाद, then he went to the foreign service, became an ambassador. Right now he's a member of उससे बात हो रही थी. He said many of our graduates, they've done pretty well outside in other fields. So सिर्फ pure engineering पे हमारा focus नहीं रहना चाहिए मेरे लिहाज से. When I was in AWC, मैंने 3 लड़के वो जो हम कर रहे थे उनको, जिसको informal academia कहते हैं, I sent them to LUMS. Do you know, पहली 3 positions उनकी थी, first, second and third. And that, उसको फिर मैंने एक practice बना दिया कि they should go and attend these things also. So मुझे सिर्फ आप जावेद, मेरा question ये है कि why we only focus on engineering की development में कैसे करनी है, क्या नहीं करना. इसको I think we should इसको जरा थोड़ा सा हम diversify करें. And let's make leaders out of our engineers too. अभी आपको कोई नजर नहीं आता है कहीं पे भी.
Sir, sorry, go ahead, sir.
नहीं, मेरा मतलब है थोड़ा सा बॉदर करता है मुझे जो हम करने जा रहे हैं ना, एक 8th क्लास के स्टूडेंट से लेके पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट तक लेके जा रहे हैं. I may be any field for that matter. पर चंद चीजें जिससे, जैसे मैंने कहा ना, एजुटेनमेंट, वो तरबियत जिसको बोलते हैं उर्दू में. So वो एक साथ becomes a part of your education, and that also has that informal academia too. जो observations से आप हासिल करते हैं. स्वाय होली बुक्स के बाकी सारी चीजें इंसान ने लिखी हैं. So I mean, I used to ask in my interview कि everything raised to the power 0 is equal to 1. The question is why. So उस किस्म की चीजें जो है ना, curiosity, वो हमारी होनी चाहिए. For creativeness, जिसको कहते हैं creativity. So उस किस्म की चीज यहाँ पे थोड़े से subservient है हम to knowledge, right, to these disciplines. We should not be subservient. हमें हमारे अंदर traits should be developed that we should question these things. We should be able to take on challenges. तो ये मेरा सिर्फ एक छोटी सी है. मैं बुढ़ा आदमी हूँ, अब इसके अलावा और करने के है नहीं काम. But keep on thinking कि क्यों हमारी गवर्नेंस improve नहीं करती. I mean, I don't think as an engineer, and I'm sure you all of you, when I look at your gupchup thing, you all have your observations about जो भी the type of governance we have, things like that. So I think मेरे ख्याल this should become integral part of whatever discipline that you're being taught. मेरे लिहाज से. Anyway, leave it to you.
Yes, sir. You are very correct in what you've just mentioned. And so, one of the slides which I showed you, I had this triangle of Bloom's taxonomy, or that kind of is a basis of a lot of aspects as far as design of your learning environment is concerned. And if you look at that, classification, if you want to call it, the lowest level of classification really is whether it is engineering. I mean, you may have noticed that, I've talked in broader terms, and only in certain cases I just mentioned engineering over there. And engineering education is that the lower levels of that, classification of learning really is facts and et cetera, but the objective of education is not those lower level aspects that is needed as a base, but the objective of education really is that the top of that pyramid, which is analysis, which is evaluation, which is synthesis.
Exactly.
And when we talk of evaluation, we're talking about two competing ideas, and we have to be able to assess it and evaluate, why this idea is not good and why this idea is better, or how can we merge the goods of both ideas, and so synthesis. So that is the essence of education, which is missing, unfortunately, in a lot of education learning environments, whether it's engineering or whether it is political science, whether it's economic. I'll be very frank with you, during my, one phase of my life, I started looking at an MBA, and I almost completed it, but, I didn't stay there for a longer time because of a posting from there. But I realized that, hey, if I had known that economics is such an interesting subject, because I was fascinated by macroeconomics, I was fascinated by, managerial finance, I said, hey, if I had known all these things are so interesting and they were not, as they say, in this narrow, stack over there, that to do economics, you have to do FA and economics, rata marna padta hai. I was terrible to think about that. Oh, economics, no, I'm not going to do this. But such an, fascinating field. Or if I had known, for example, that, something like psychology is such an interesting subject, because of my trying to educate myself about how people learn and how, what are the different learning, theories over there. I don't know, I may have become a psychologist, or when I learned about, cognitive sciences, I said, oh my God, neurobiology. So, I mean, we are, the environment, unfortunately, over there is that you have to have a career so that you can feed yourself, and so, and the next thing that you talked about is leadership, where unfortunately, there are some structural issues in the organization where we come from, and there are very few opportunities over there where you can really excel and show your leadership qualities. Typically, because of, I don't want to go into those aspects because they are organizational aspects. So those issues are there, and in the civilian side, in civilian colleges, you're very correct. The emphasis is only on the subject matter, and we all know that subject matter is one aspect of developing your personality, your broader personality. It's subject matter, it's your communication skills, it's your ethical understanding of what is happening here in the United States. For example, it's a requirement that in engineering, for example, that the students should do a course in, for example, philosophy. Pakistan, you tell an engineering school to do philosophy, they'll say this guy has gone crazy. But here they do philosophy, and they do ethical philosophy of ethics. So that they understand. At least they learn. What are the challenges when you are being an ethical person, and what issues you can encounter. How do you detect an ethical issue? Most of us.
Yeah, Javed,
even interest,
उसमें human resource development, human resource management, ये भी part of the आपके curriculum होना चाहिए. As you said, psychology. I mean, to understand people. मैंने तो ये personally experience किया हुआ.
You are right, sir. You are absolutely right. all these aspects are there, of whatever, career that you choose, and that's why here, and I don't know, how it is now in Pakistan. I mean, it's to some extent there in the armed forces, where you do your staff college and you do all these promotion exams, etc., where some element of these things are brought in, and that's why we get better groomed into leadership positions and understanding people a little better as compared to our civilian uh, compatriots, who do not have the opportunity. I mean, the bureaucrats certainly are getting these opportunities to go into their staff schools as well. But in general, I'm talking about. But here in the US, for example, there's a big premium placed on professional development. Big premium placed on professional development. They give you those credits, when you go to this professional development classes, whether it's a project management class that you take, or is it, or if it is, some other professional development. So those aspects definitely, these are structural aspects. They have to be made part of policy, as far as government organizations are concerned, and as far as private organizations are concerned, the private organizations, industries, etc., they have to come up with these things, and understand that these are important things, and help their engineers, their whoever is working their management, to grow professionally. So I agree with you.
Sir, social anthropology is also included.
Yes, yes. Sociology is an important aspect of all this. I mean, I'll be very frank with you. When I came to the United States, well, when I first visited the United States when I was a young man, I thought, my God, this is such a great place, equality, blah, blah, blah. But as I spent more and more time in my second visit and my third, and now that I've been here for a long time, I really understood the social fabric of the society over here, and I understand all the fault lines which are here, and how to navigate those fault lines in the society over here, which is in every society. So I definitely agree with you, Manzar, that that aspect is an important aspect for us to personally grow ourselves into better human beings, successful professionals, the different facets of our personality.
Sir, what stop us in doing the changing the syllabus for social anthropology?
Nothing. In fact, I will give you an example. I'm forgetting now, in the mid 2000 or something, KP, Khalid Parvez, he approached me, and I think it was the curriculum of IST was being developed at that time. And so he approached me and he said, sir, can you look at this curriculum that we're developing, and give your opinion in it? And when that curriculum I looked at, and my feedback and my suggestion in that curriculum was the introduction of all these different, what we call, and I'm sorry to use this word because in Pakistan it has a very negative connotation, unfortunately. I don't know. And again, this negative connotation is because of, poor understanding of the terminologies, and hijacking of terminologies, and misusing of terminologies. But liberal arts education is an essential element of undergraduate education. Liberal arts education is that component which develops your character, as Air Marshal Shahid Ahmed was just mentioning. And what are those liberal art character, aspects of education? Those are, ethics, philosophy, and you can, bring it into a mold, and Islam has all these concepts over there. If you can design, it in a manner that it does not become, another Islamiyat class, but it becomes, a class where you are teaching, you mentioned, and so on. So that is an important aspect. I don't know whether it is part of their curriculum or not. Here in the US, for example, in the undergraduate education, okay, it is a requirement. It's an accreditation requirement, for example, that the students must take at least a minimum of 2 courses in social and behavioral sciences. So whether the students take, and because the US education system is based on electives, right? So at least 2 courses in social and behavioral sciences, whether those social sciences and behavioral sciences, whether they are, sociology or psychology, or political science. And they must take at least 2 courses in humanities and fine arts. They want you as an undergraduate student to develop your personality, to recognize and understand what is art, what are fine arts. It's not being a heathen, that you are painting something, or you are doing photography, or they want you to develop your. So as I said, you have to do those kinds of courses. And as I mentioned, ethics and so on. So those are important aspects that I hope somebody over here who is from the Pakistan Engineering Council, is listening to it. But there needs to be a definite really rethinking of how the curriculum should look like. And as Air Marshal Shahid is talking about, the plans that they have for their endeavor, this is going to be an important aspect of their endeavor. There's not just going to be what we call their professional or major, as we call it here, component of it, which whether it's engineering or medicine, but there's other aspects, to make them into a better human being and have a personality, a character which is multidimensional. So, sorry, never ask a professor to talk.
No, Javed, an excellent lecture as usual. Very well
Thank you, sir.
said. And the best thing I liked was that you were down to earth and very frank about the possible impact of online learning, especially on the engineering aspect. Do you guys have some sort of a plan to overcome the deficiencies, expected deficiencies in the engineers being produced during the COVID period after, God willing, it finishes? Is anybody thinking about it?
Yes, sir. So thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. Sir, हमने आपसे सीखा हुआ है.
बड़ा पड़ेगा ना बस को.
But yeah, I mean, it's a serious issue. Actually, people don't know this, but you'll be surprised that in the United States, in this pandemic era, the students are being given the option, okay, to either opt for a letter grade, an ABC, or to opt for a pass grade, because they think that, I may have been getting an A, but because of this online teaching and, these other issues, I'm having, there are a lot of issues. You see that you suddenly move from a classroom to online. You are living in you end up going back to your parents' house, and you may not have a separate room, and a good Wi-Fi connection to be able to log into, all these accessibility and equity issues. There's a big thing here in the US. And so, they may say, hey, I am getting a C in this class, but actually I should have been getting an A. It's an effect of, how you have moved rapidly from an online class to this remote learning, and, great thought has not been gone. There's a difference between online courses and, what we are doing nowadays because of this COVID, So they are being given an option that, okay, not to impact their GPA, they can opt for a passing grade. So,
okay.
Well, Javed, I think Nasir is doing a very good job. I would like him to tell you on the online training. Many agle din I had discussion with him, and he's, jitne aspects you're talking about, we had a good discussion But I tell you, we have people like Nasir who could be very useful in, particularly in our scenario here. जो कि इस चीज को कर सके, and we can, people like you can be mentors, who can advise and do things, because as Salim also said, pandemic, जो हमारा pandemic का मामला है, इसमें जरा online पे हमारा stress बहुत है, ताकि ये जो time है, we don't lose on time. Probably Nasir would be able to throw some light as to what efforts he has put in for this online for the last 1 to 2 years.
Thank you very much, sir, for involving me in the education sector. Definitely my experience, I mean, I've been doing it online education, not from during the COVID time. And maybe I have been involved in this for the last 10 years. So I've been conducting the physical classes, but my students can join in that physical classroom as a virtual student. And they can interact fully through technology. They can write on board, they can ask questions, they can raise hand. And I mean, to me, I mean, the technology is helping the things which are possible, not even in the physical classroom. I mean, through technology, you could have a better environment where you can learn, provided there are challenges, as sir has also mentioned. So, and I always go for online education, I go for a hybrid mode. I don't go for purely asynchronous or synchronous. So hybrid mode is the best mode where you can combine both the benefits and I mean, take the advantage of both. So to my opinion, I mean, online education or physical, there is a need of a quality education that I mostly focus. Either it is physical or we must emphasize on the quality education. And fortunately, I've been in this process for a long time. So we have been experiencing this thing.
Right, and I agree with you, Nasir. I mean, I'm not saying that online education is something that we should not do. Absolutely not saying that. It has its advantages. I mentioned, accessibility, flexibility, and so on. Yeah, I mean, I've been involved with it, myself for a number of years. It's not that it's just because of COVID. I mean, I've been experimenting with all kinds of, learning philosophies, flipped classroom and hybrid classroom, et cetera, et cetera. So, but returning back to
last question, maybe we can gain from your experience. Sir, just say we have a different culture in USA. Most of the learning.
Nasir, sorry to interrupt. I'll just mention there's something going around on the internet about an online engineer whose plumbing was zigzag along the stairs. So you do have a look at it.
I mean, sir, the point which I mentioned, is that it is a great, it can work great in certain areas, and it cannot work in other areas. So we have to be cognizant of the fact that in which engineering area it can work, in which engineering it cannot work, and be fully aware of that. If it is working in a certain area, then I mean, it can be, well, I shouldn't say working, but it can be used in a certain area more appropriately. Then we should make sure that the learning experience is designed according to the research on student engagement, on student motivation, on how to improve their self-efficacy, and all these constructs which have been found through empirical research on learning. So that is how we should be looking at this changing landscape of education in general.
Bottom line is asli hota hai, nakli hota hai.
Sir, if you allow, मेरा question बीच में रह गया.
Sorry.
सर मैं ये पूछ रहा था कि assessment जो है, मतलब वो challenge है, और उसमें mostly US में assignment is a very good tool of learning. लेकिन वही मॉडल यहाँ फेल हो जाता है, बिकॉज व्हेन वी गिव द असाइनमेंट टू द स्टूडेंट्स, एक कर लेता है तो इसका मतलब पूरी क्लास कर लेती है, कॉपी का बहुत ट्रेंड है। तो इसको कैसे रोका जाए, मतलब हाउ वी मेक द असाइनमेंट सच दैट दे लर्न फ्रॉम देम, नॉट दे चीट। बेसिकली ये मैं काफी एक्सपेरिमेंटेशन इस पे करता रहता हूँ, उस पे इंस्टेंट क्विज भी ले लेता हूँ, कई दफा वाइवा भी ले लेता हूँ, लेकिन वो द असाइनमेंट पार्ट इज नॉट वर्किंग वेरी वेल।
So let me assure you, Nasir, that students all over the world are the same. It's a matter of degree, you see.
सर असाइनमेंट को तो आप रिलेट कर सकते हैं जिस तरह सीई में ओपन बुक ओपन नोट्स एग्जामिनेशन भी होते थे, तो दैट्स सेम चीज़ है कि वो उस तरह के असाइनमेंट बनाए कि वो इवन कंसल्ट करके आपस में भी वो अपना यूनिक चीज़ पैदा करना चाहें। अब एजुकेशन एक बहुत बड़ी चीज़ है जिसमें हम एक डिस्कशन नेवर एंडिंग होगी। हम लोगों की एजुकेशन का जो बेसिक फ्लॉ है विच वी आर नॉट बीन एबल टू एड्रेस in Pakistan is that we are following all sort of international accreditation as well as international ranking standards in our education. उससे नीचे हम बात ही नहीं करते, and without we have lost the focus on our national need, industrial need and people need. और हमारा जो कल्चर है उसके हमने उसके साथ इंटीग्रेट नहीं किया, क्योंकि PEC और HEC भी आपस में एग्री नहीं करते। इसकी वजह यही है कि हम बॉटम रूट को एड्रेस नहीं करते, हम इनपुट जो लोग हैं प्राइमरी टीचर से लेके प्रोफेसर तक उनकी चीज़ों को हम एड्रेस ही नहीं करते या उनसे हम इनपुट ही नहीं लेते। तो जितना मर्जी हम हायर स्टैंडर्ड पे चले जाएं, अगर हमने नेशनल फोकस या नेशनल नीड्स को अपने एजुकेशन सिस्टम में ना रखा तो हम कभी भी कोई अच्छा एजुकेशन सिस्टम नहीं बना सकते।
लेकिन इरफान, yeah, but you are very correct, you know, that it is important to be aware of our national needs, you know. But as far as, you know, accreditation standards, you have to have standards, you know. That's one of the ways, you know, to measure your success. You know, metrics are necessary.
That's what I'm saying. Accreditation should be based on our national need.
Right.
हम क्या करते हैं कि USA में ये हो रहा है, कैम्ब्रिज में ये हो रहा है, यूके में ये हो रहा है, वहां से हम मॉडल लेके आके उसको हम फोटोस्टैट कॉपी कर देते हैं और उसी को फॉलो करना शुरू करते हैं।
But I think that there is a misunderstanding as far as accreditation standards are concerned.
Exactly,
and you know how what is being taught and how is it being taught. You know, accreditation standards are very, you know, general statements. For example, जो United States में Engineering Accreditation Commission है, and as I mentioned, which is a component of ABET, for which I am a program evaluator. For example, they have changed their standards slightly, but you know, one of their accreditation standards, for example, is that at the end of their you know, engineering degree, at the time of their graduation, for example, the students should be able to communicate effectively with a range of audiences. So agar aap isko dekhen to this is a standard which is a general standard, and it is you know, applicable to whether Pakistan or United States or wherever you want to go, you know. Or their other standard, for example, is that at the time of graduation, a student graduating from an engineering program should be able to apply the principles of science, math, and engineering to solve problems of you know, complex engineering problems. So I don't know, you know, what accreditation standards the Pakistan is implementing. You know, I don't know. But these are the standards that are there in the United States, to which we, you know, now how do we demonstrate is a different issue altogether. How do we demonstrate? How do I demonstrate when you know, a program evaluator comes to evaluate my program? How do I demonstrate to him that the students that I'm graduating from my program are able to communicate effectively with a range of audiences? That is, you know, again, and let me assure you of one thing, you know, that नहीं ये कहते कि आप इसको कैसे करें, वो कहते हैं कि आप हमें डेमोन्स्ट्रेट करके बताएं कि आप कैसे कर रहे हैं इसको. So I mean, जो accreditation agencies पाकिस्तान में for example हैं, अगर वो if they बताने कि आप इस चीज को इस स्टैंडर्ड को मीट कर रहे हैं कि नहीं, तो फिर हम आपको मानते हैं, वरना नहीं. Over here, the accreditors, the evaluators who evaluate your program, they actually come and support your program and help you improve your program and not tell you कि जी ये तुम क्या कर रहे हो. So I don't know, maybe it's a an attitude. I don't have experience of accreditation in Pakistan, so unfortunately I cannot speak to it.
So पाकिस्तान में documentation पूरी होती है, पाकिस्तान में documentation पूरी होती है, लेकिन on grounds चीजें different होती हैं. That is the difference.
पूरी नहीं होती, more than 200% होती है. University professor spends about 40% of his time for accreditation of PEC separate and HEC separate and the third independently separate. So सारा टाइम तो वहाँ निकल जाता है. तो वो हमारे ये हम लोग रियलाइज नहीं करते कि हमारे पाकिस्तान में ड्यू टू वेरियस रीज़न कुछ लोगों ने इंडिपेंडेंटली अपनी चीज़ नेशनल फोकस की तरफ ज़्यादा करने के लिए डिफरेंट सिस्टम बना लिया. अभी पाकिस्तान में 4 डिफरेंट एजुकेशन सिस्टम चल रहे हैं. अब उनको इंटीग्रेट ही नहीं किया जा सक रहा बिकॉज पीपल डोंट रियलाइज कि इन चीज़ों का बेसिक फुटिंग क्या है. Even if I talk to HEC and PEC, both agree with our point of view, but disagree to implement. वो कहते हैं ये हमारे पास ये आया हुआ है, हमने इसी को implement करना है. We are not ready to listen to ifs and buts and how to do it, and वो उसको integrate करना चाहें भी तो नहीं कर सक रहे. This is what is happening in Pakistan.
So Irfan, I would say this, that is why in the United States, accreditation is not a government function. पाकिस्तान में जो है वो हर चीज गवर्नमेंट फंक्शन बन जाती है क्योंकि whatever the perks and privileges associated with it. But
आपने बॉटम लाइन पकड़ लिया सर, ये दिस इज द रीजन. यस,
you see, यहाँ पर जो है जो हमारी accreditation agencies हैं, those accreditation agencies, for example, जो engineering accreditation agency है, which is ABET, you see, if उसके जो stakeholders हैं वो industry है, वो professional societies हैं, like the AIAA or the ASME or the American Civil Engineering Society, I'm forgetting their acronym.
यही तो मैं एक्सप्लेन करने की कोशिश कर रहा था कि जो चीज़ें हैं हमने अपनी नेशनल नीड और नेशनल रिसोर्सेज के मुताबिक मोल्ड करनी है. कट एंड पेस्ट करके यू विल नॉट गेन एनीथिंग, एंड जितना क्योस हो रहा है वही बढ़ता जाएगा और कुछ भी नहीं होगा. तो आपने बिल्कुल उसको सही अल्फाज में समराइज कर दिया, बल्कि डिटेल एलेबोरेट भी कर दिया. थैंक यू वेरी मच सर.
थैंक यू इरफान.
So let me ask a question in favor of Pakistan.
Yes,
Okay, सर मुझे ये बताइए, जो वेस्ट के अंदर मतलब जब मैं अपना मास्टर्स कर रहा था लंदन में, तो मैंने वहां देखा अपनी क्लास का साइज दैट वाज 100 और इवन 100+. इवन सम ऑफ द क्लासेस जो होती थी ऑडिटोरियम में होती थी.
जी.
अब इतने बड़े क्लास साइज के साथ हाउ इज इट पॉसिबल फॉर ए टीचर टू इवन नो ईच अदर? आई मीन दैट इज समवन लाइक the session. It is not a dialogue, it is just a monologue. I can't even ask a question in 300 people sitting around. ठीक है. अच्छा, ये क्या है? It is just because of commercialization, heavy commercialization of education in the West especially. पाकिस्तान में आज भी एजुकेशन कम से कम नाम की हद तक ही सही, लोग इसको नॉट फॉर प्रॉफिट की बात करते हैं. कभी भी उसको कमर्शलाइजेशन का वर्ड इसमें इस्तेमाल नहीं होता. पाकिस्तान में क्लास साइज भी इवन 30 से भी ज्यादा हो जाता है, लोग शोर मचाना शुरू कर देते हैं. 30 से ज्यादा जनरली होता भी नहीं है. सो हाउ डू यू थिंक ये इसका इफेक्ट वेस्ट में नेगेटिव होगा, नहीं होगा, और पाकिस्तान में ये चीज क्यों नहीं हो रही, और वाइस वर्सा?
Right, so you are very correct. यहाँ पर even in the US, for example, जो freshman classes होती हैं, first year की क्लास होती है, वो इंग्लिश की क्लास में 150 स्टूडेंट बैठा होता है. जो है वो स्टैटिक्स की क्लास में I don't know 70-80 स्टूडेंट, 100 स्टूडेंट बैठे हुए होंगे. And you are very correct, and that's why there is a और इन सारी क्लासेस को एक्चुअली यहाँ पर I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, now here we hear you. So.
Okay, yeah, my connection unfortunately is unstable. So यहाँ पर भी there are huge classes, you know. और यहाँ पर तो actually ये जो classes हैं, statics हो गई और fluid dynamics हो गया या circuits की class हो गई and so on. They're called gatekeeper classes. So that you know, इसमें आपने जो है ना वो यहाँ तो it's a very famous saying कि जी इन classes में जो professor आता है तो उसकी जो पहली statement होती है students को ये वो कहता है कि या कहती है कि अपने इर्द गिर्द देख लो कि कौन कौन बैठा है क्योंकि by mid semester तुम्हारे साथ जो इधर बैठा होगा और उधर बैठा होगा वो मौजूद नहीं होंगे अगर तुम मौजूद हुए तो so you know that's the kind over here but there is a difference, you know, I think there is a philosophical difference हमारे undergraduate education में और इनके undergraduate education में. मतलब हमारी undergraduate education Pakistan में, in my opinion, as far as the professional component is concerned, is very good. बहुत अच्छी है यहाँ की निस्बत. फर्क यहाँ पर ये है कि ये यहाँ की जो philosophy है, जो 4 साल है, ये चाहते हैं कि ये लड़के लड़कियां आएं 4 साल यूनिवर्सिटी में गुजारें so that they develop their personalities, they develop their character, they, you know, what we may, you know, debate that कि जी कैसा character develop कर रहे हैं or whatever, you know, that's a different thing altogether. But at least that is the philosophy, that along with their professional, you know, major that they are working in, that they develop their you know their character, their personalities, their multi-dimensional होने चाहिए. जो है communicate भी कर सकें, अपना थोड़ा बहुत जो है वो free body diagram भी बना सकें. हालांकि I have talked to industry people who कहते हैं जी जितने भी engineer निकलते हैं वो free body diagram तक नहीं बना सकते. I mean those challenges are there. So but in Pakistan, well, again, you know, my experience is limited only to the CAE, but I did spend, you know, a month or two in one of the engineering universities before the final call came. और मैं आपको अपना personal example बताता हूँ. मैं class में बैठा हुआ था, तो वो जो professor था वो, I am forgetting now, he was supposed to be a very top-notch professor, you know, and he started talking about integration. तो उन्होंने कहा जी इंटीग्रल फलाना इंटीग्रल हमने एफएससी में तो किया हुआ था लेकिन हमें कख नहीं पता था कि व्हाट द हेल डज यू नो एन इंटीग्रेशन मीन. तो मैंने उससे सवाल पूछा, मैंने कहा कि एक्सक्यूज मी जी सर क्या इंटीग्रेशन क्या होती है. वो जनाब उधर तो क्लास में जो है ना पिन ड्रॉप साइलेंस हो गया कि ये जो है लुक एट दिस गाय कि जो है कैसे इसने इंजीनियरिंग में दाखिला ले लिया, इसके पता नहीं 3rd डिवीजन है क्या, इसको ये नहीं पता कि कैलकुलेट ये इंटीग्रेशन क्या होती है. तो उसने वो खूनखार आंखों से मुझे देखा उस प्रोफेसर ने कि इंटीग्रेशन, यू डोंट नो व्हाट इंटीग्रेशन इज इंटीग्रेशन. तो मेरे साथ जो लड़के बैठे हुए थे उन्होंने मुझे खींच के बिठा दिया. उन्होंने कहा यार इंटीग्रेशन देखो ना ऐसे इंटीग्रल है. मैंने कहा यार ये तो मुझे आता है बट आई डोंट अंडरस्टैंड द कॉन्सेप्ट कि ये चीज क्या है और इसको हम क्यों इस्तेमाल करते हैं. सो you know, the thing that I was mentioning, I didn't want to go into great detail about it, but there is, you know, those who teach over there, they have good content knowledge. Lekin to be a good teacher, you know, there is a different construct which is called not only content knowledge, but it's called pedagogical content knowledge, which means how do you explain this concept to the student. So that's a different way of, you know, transferring that content to the student. You know, and of course we have not learned this. You know, I mean, I'm saying these words because I've been studying a little bit about it, so I can use these buzzwords and impress people. But you know, those are the things that we, you know, I was surprised to learn that, you know, I was in Norway, and over there I found out that for their faculty members who recently have graduated with, let's say, a PhD degree, they wanted them to have a pedagogy certificate. They wanted them to know how, you know, how learning takes place. What is what are these concepts? Pedagogical content knowledge. And in today's world, you know, a new aspect and online and blah blah. But so people are doing research on it and extensive research on it, just like Nasser, is doing his research on it. And so they said, okay, for in today's world, not only that the teacher or the instructor or the professor should have content knowledge, and not only that he should have pedagogical content knowledge as to how to teach it, but he should have technological, pedagogical content knowledge. How should he be able to use technology to be able to teach that content? I mean, we never, I don't think so that these are the things that are, very well known, to a lot of teachers or professors. But those of us who are interested in becoming good teachers, and most of you were sitting over there, that is the great, I would say, characteristic of CAE graduates, that whatever they go into, they want to excel in it. They want to understand what is going on. Just like Air Marshal Shahid was saying about, I'm forgetting his name, the gentleman who was the High Commissioner in UK and now, yes, exactly. In the Zakriya, right? Or there are others, CAE graduates who, have gone into absolutely different professions and have excelled in it. Why? Because, well, we the kind of education that we got in the CAE, and I don't know, I still have to figure out, what was that chemistry over there, which has put us on this path of excelling into, trying to excel into whatever positions that we take up in our afterlife. Yes, Asfar?
Definitely.
Sir, Assalamu alaikum.
You have done the right thing. You have raised your hand.
Sir, I didn't want to lose the opportunity. First of all, Assalamu alaikum, sir. Nice to hear from you. Always love your humility and the kindness that you have shown me earlier when we were both at CAE, and just wanted to let you know that. So I've always remember and cherished those moments.
I appreciate that, Asfar. Thank you very much.
Sir, my humble question is that you talked a lot about the online content delivery that is now happening. And we also know that, especially in the US, there's a huge issue around student debt that's exploding. So, in the some of the issues that you talked about, do you also think about, or is there any consideration around the financial disruption that is going to happen as a result of everything moving online? What do you see in the future that's likely to happen with these big universities that rely on tuition and other funding sources, right, to survive?
I mean, that's an absolutely pertinent question, and it is it is a question that is on the minds of all these large universities. But at least in the near future, I do see that the brick and mortar component of the universities is going to be there for a long time, and in a reasonable size. Or basically, uski wajah, I mean, it may change, and of course that change is going to be brought by whom? It is not the university which is going to bring this change. It is the change will be will be market driven. And when I say market driven, I'm not talking about the student market. I'm talking about the employer market. It will be driven by the employer market. If the employer market is becoming more and more comfortable with graduates of online education, of online degrees, then of course the brick and mortar component of universities is going to start to shrink faster and faster. So yes, that component is there. That I mean, we have seen that impact even here in this COVID thing, because there was a big push from students, because they said, hey, why should we pay the full tuition, because we are no longer on campus, and we should be charged an online tuition, which of course was not accepted, primarily because you still have to maintain the physical. Well, yeah, for tuition. But you are very correct. It is going to have an impact on the revenue generation stream of the universities, and the universities are, concerned about it. But as I said, that this change, the driver of this change is going to be the market which employs the graduates of these universities.
Looks to me, sir, that this COVID-19 situation may have brought a little more awareness in students, like this technology is now mature enough for me to probably, at least for certain engineering streams like software engineering, or where you have, you can go completely online. You really don't have to be physically present in a university to get your education. So why do I have to pay so much money and take on so much debt when I can just go to an online university and get a degree? I mean, there are already options available now, like to have Udemy and Coursera, online universities cropping up, and it's up to the individual to make sure that he or she polices himself or herself, right, and gets the right education so that they can go and then get into the job market.
Right. Yeah, you are very correct. And so I have two comments on it. The first one is this, that absolutely, these majors that you just mentioned, and many others, of course, could be political science as well. Have a discussion. You can have political science online degree. So there are two components to it. The first one is that all the data, research data, et cetera, people have been looking at it for a long time. You very correctly pointed out that you should have that self-regulation in you, that discipline in you to be able to sit down and do your work, and you are motivated that you want this degree so that you can progress. The percentage of those people, those kind of person, is small, and that's why there is a lot of rush to let's say register in an online course, and by the second week you drop out. I've done it myself. That is okay. I can't sit down every evening at 8 o'clock and do this or whatever. So yes, it requires a high level of motivation. It requires a high level of self-regulation to be able to do something like that. And of course, if that online course is a well-designed course which helps you in your self-regulation and helps you in your self-discipline, that you are going to be successful. A large majority of students are unable to do it. So yes, there's a niche for those kind of students over there. And I'll give you an example, that when a survey was sent out to the university, in our university, for example, or in neighboring universities, when a survey was sent out to the students that whether they would like to, because of the COVID, the university were trying to determine whether you should open up the campuses for students to come, you'd be surprised. The majority of the students wanted to be on campus. Well, because for them in the West, I don't know about, things are different in Pakistan because the social and cultural aspects are different in countries like Pakistan. But in the United States, the students, those who are college going students, they don't want to stay in their parents' house. They want to be on their own. They want to, even if there's a university in their hometown, they'll say, no, Dad, I'm going to go to, that such and such university, which is on the other end of the continent. So those social aspects that the students, there is this large, number of students who don't care about, the debt that they're taking, and, there are all these loans, etc., available to you, or grants available to them, but they want to be on campus because of the the social environment, the social interactions, the independence that they want to gain from their parents. That here in the US they call it the frontier spirit. They don't want to be in their home. They want to get out of their home and chart their own course in life, which may be good or bad, so those aspects are there. But yes, there are a group of students who will benefit from an online, especially course is a course which is designed such to keep them in that state.
If I
On a
add,
lighter note, sir, I suppose aerospace engineering is safe because we still have the wind tunnel to lure students into the campus.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Well, we have a water tunnel also. So we have a light show, we have laser lights in there. So we do a light show as well.
We have the aerospace engineers, they still have a few tricks up their sleeves, I suppose, sir.
Exactly. And not to mention the rockets that we launch nowadays, So.
Absolutely.
sir,
Thank you so much, sir.
But sir,
My pleasure, Asfar.
But on the other disciplines, sir, like the UNSW in Australia, the student have full option to either attend physically or online. And this was not happening in the COVID. Before that also they had, such a good environment that the student can come online or physically attend that particular.
Yes.
The trend
I am.
Trend will change.
You are quite right.
Right, sir. The basically the inventor of the MOOC, he was talking to his daughter. So he said the new generation probably will learn in a new way. They were able to communicate differently. And probably he was sharing a joke that maybe our grandchildren, they will say our ancestors used to sit in the class and they used to learn. Probably the new way of learning will come, definitely, sir.
Right. I'm looking forward to the way, I've seen these advertisements that you put the headphones on and go to sleep, you will be,
engage them, definitely that.
Exactly. I really am looking forward to a disruptive technology, for example, holographic, projection of the teacher or the learning materials into the student's personal environment. That would be a disruptive technology in my opinion.
They are also doing it in virtual reality, where you try to see each other and kind of a social interaction also. So
right.
Will
I currently have a National Science Foundation grant, how to use virtual reality in higher education. And I tell you, from my experience at least, which it's still, for me, it's an exploratory kind of a research that I'm doing, but it's a grant that I have from the National Science Foundation. I have seen that it is not easy, absolutely not easy to come up with a pedagogical paradigm in which you can use the affordances that a virtual reality environment provides you, so that you can use its power to be able to teach appropriately. Because it's very difficult to come up with, you can mimic the classroom in it, that's a different thing altogether, mimicking a classroom in virtual reality, but to be able to use the real strengths, the real affordances that virtual reality, gives you, so that you can use its, its characteristics to enhance, improve, strengthen the learning environment. That is an extremely difficult proposition, and we're struggling with it to come up with ways to teach, let's say, the concept of I don't know, tin airfoil theory, in virtual reality. Well, yeah, I can stand there and be an instructor in virtual reality, and the students can sit in their homes and look at me in 3D and feel as if I'm teaching them. But is that really the use of all the power that the virtual reality has? No, we have to come up and think about what should be the pedagogical innovation in virtual reality that we should be able to use it appropriately and properly. That is my, at least, experience so far.
I'm doing one of the research that we are comparing the online pedagogy and the physical pedagogy. And hopefully that research will yield some results. So thank you very much.
Well,
I enjoyed your talk. I think need to talk more about this also. As you have mentioned that, we have to be a good teacher. After, teaching so many years, I realized that I should know how to teach. And these days I've taken admission also in Masters of Education, and I'm trying to learn how to teach after 20 years teaching. So that's
well, I mean, look at me, I mean, hey, would you have ever thought that SEO of 11 Squadron, F6's Squadron would be talking using these buzzwords that I'm using, or being OC engineering? I mean, we all have to, improve ourselves and learn, and develop ourselves into the experts that the profession that we are in, so that we can do a better job.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll definitely learn more from you. Thanks a lot. Really, very interesting.
We all are at the same level now at the learning curve. It finally becomes asymptotic, so we all are at the same level as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
But you have to come back for an encore later on.
Sure. Any other questions? I'll be more than happy to deflect.
Sir, मेरा एक सवाल है, with all this advantage of the technology, nature से चीजें दूर होती जा रही हैं, and then we are again coming back to towards the natural things. What do you say about it? We feel frustrated.
Yeah, I do agree with you. That I mean, it's not a cliche. It's a fact that humans are social animals. I mean, what technology is doing, the younger generation, we see, that technology is, we say that they're socially very, interactive, but physically they are way apart, and you never know. After a while, they may say, this is nonsense, this social media that we have, yeah, it's good, but we need to have that physical touch. And as I mentioned to you, that this, for example, the students desire to be back on campus, despite the fact that they could sit in the comfort of their house or whatever, they say, no, we want to be on campus around everyone else. They still use their social media, but they still wanted that physical social interaction with each other. So you are very correct, that this technology is trying to move us away from, nature, but of course, gravitational pull, is pretty strong.
सर वो एक शेर भी है ना कि वो कहता है बेहतर है कि ना डालो माहो कमर पे कमंदे इंसान की खबर लो कि वो दम तोड़ रहा है.
Yes, well, I mean, that's a good statement, of course, but it's a debatable statement, and that is what I think we should be striving to teach our students, that a statement like that is very good. Because why? If we have tried to engage our students in the upper levels of assessments and synthesis and evaluations, then a statement like that, like this, has some very interesting, when I heard it from you, I see some very interesting competing ideas over there. So on one side is the idea of progress, that you want to progress. Now in this case, progress is the command जो आप सितारों और कमर पे डालना चाहते हैं. And on the other side is this concept of taking care of humanity around you. Are these two incompatible? Are these two competitive? That is the kind of, I think, in my opinion, the philosophical debate that our students, in not just in this area, but in any area, I'm just giving you this example, should be able to engage in and try to understand the pros and cons of each of these competing concepts.
The main focus was how to set the priority. It's not only that we have to go for the moon, but we have to look into the human aspect also.
Yes. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that this is a prime example which can prompt between intellectual strengths, their ability to form opinions, informed opinions based on discussions on either side of the debate. I mean, look at, for example, where has those debating societies gone? Oxford still has them. They would debate all these. I mean, I'm sure some of you still like to listen to the Oxford debates on YouTube. So those things are part of education, part of learning, where you develop those critical thinking skills in the students. हमारे यहाँ जो है वो I'm sorry, but the debating that takes place is not the debating on the pros and cons of a thesis which is put in front of them, of a topic which is put in front of them. Our emphasis that I have seen, at least, and I may be totally wrong, is that you have this flowery language, this poetic language of debate, कि वो एक साइड पे खड़े होके एक जो है बड़ा जबरदस्त तकरीर करता है, दूसरा it's not debate, it is a one-sided affair. So these are these different aspects which used to be there in the education system to develop critical thinking in the students, communication skills in the students, trying to figure out what is right and what is wrong about a certain thing, and so on. But yes, you are right. It's the question of priorities, which is debatable.
सर उसने काट निकाला है जमाने में बहुत, मगर वो सोच का बहुत बोना है, यही तो रोना है.
मेरी उर्दू बहुत कमजोर है, मैं पठान हूँ, तो इसलिए शायरी जो है वो although I went to an Urdu medium school, I did my metric from St. Model High School, Lahore, so that's why you may feel that my Urdu pronunciation is not bad, but
So you speak 3 languages, so you have got to look at the brighter side of things.
Je parle un peu français aussi.
Oh, pas mal.
Mashallah.
Sir, how are you handling the? Sorry.
Yes.
How are you as an academic? How are you handling the speed of change in the technology and the knowledge that is changing so fast around us?
Yeah, it is amazing. I mean, and I really, hats off, especially to those of you who are involved, in the faster lane of changes in knowledge, which is all this which is associated with computer science, with Internet of Things, etc. All these, I mean, things are moving in a very, very fast. Same is the case, in, let's say, in aerospace engineering, the ideas in propulsion and satellites, etc. Even atmospheric flight. So I don't know if somebody saw that interview by Elon Musk, in which he wants to use his SpaceX system to take people from, let's say, California to Australia in 2 hours. He wants to launch and then just land over there, because they can land vertically now. So he said, hey, this is the way to go. So yeah, things are changing very fast, and it is very, very difficult to to keep track of it, and that is a major challenge as far as education is concerned. That how to bring in and give at least a taste of what is out there, so that you whet enough appetite in your students that they can go for specialization in those areas, or graduate education in those areas, or at least go into the industry in that area and work in those areas.
Well, आपने सर पहले बात की थी, especially the universities in the West जो है liberal arts के courses उन्होंने include किए होते हैं 4 साल के degree program में. Isn't there already an information overload on the students, right? That the older syllabus, जो curriculum में जो material है, that never gets dropped, but additional stuff is getting added on, right, sir? So कितना पढ़ेगा बच्चा जो है वो?
Not actually.
I've seen my own children taking courses,
Right.
right? That really don't interest them, but they're taking them for the sake of taking them, just to maybe get a good grade, or finding something easy on the electives so that they can complete their degree programs. Their interest is really not in geography or social sciences or gender
Right.
studies. I mean, who wants to study that when they're 20 years old, right? I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with you. This is a typical response of all undergraduate students. They say, okay, I want to get over with this. They come to me for advising, and I say, can I take this course because I want to get over with it? Because their focus is on their major, right? So yes, obviously, you cannot force them to have that kind of focus on these courses. But it's actually not overload in the sense that, for example, in the US, I would say that a typical undergraduate degree ranges between 100 and I would say 123 to 130 odd credit hours, unlike the CAU, where we were overloaded. But here it's not, and out of those 130 some odd hours, there are about I think about 20, 25, 26 odd or something like that. I forget the exact number of courses, which are these social and behavioral sciences and humanities and fine arts courses. I think, as I mentioned, there are 4 courses. In addition to these 4 courses, they have to take 2 courses in English and 2 courses in history to complete this component. So it's not that they are being overloaded. The number of credit hours remain constant. So, but I do agree with you that the students may not be interested in it, and they're just trying to complete the requirements of the degree so that they can graduate. But it is hoped that the professors who are teaching these courses, somebody who's teaching a course in political science, or for example, somebody who's teaching a course in history. I mean, God Almighty, I tell you, when we were doing history when I went to the CAE in our first semester or quarter, we had 4 credit hours of history and 4 credit hours of geography, and it was taught by the same faculty member. So we used to see his face twice a day, every day. 5 credit hours. I'm sorry, 5 credit hours. So we used to see his face every day, twice a day, and we were fed up. So we hope that those people who are teaching that liberal art course in history, or that liberal art course in gender equality, or that liberal arts course in political science, are the kind of professors that we are talking about over here, who can bring in this interest in the students that, hey, these things matter in life. They are going to impact you. You should know, you should understand all these issues of political science, politics. You should understand this issue of racism, of gender inequality, and how it will impact you or your family. So it's hoped that it will bring some amount of change in their understanding and thinking of these areas. And as a result, there will be a broadening of their personality, increasing the dimensionality of their personality, as they call it.
Absolutely. And some courses are actually quite beneficial, like philosophy, as you mentioned, and critical thinking is I think is a very good course that they teach over here, right? I think that every engineer should take that course.
Exactly.
Critical, because we really don't do any kind of critical thinking back home. Right. Unfortunately, sorry if I.
No, you are very correct. Actually, I will just give you an example. I have I have a research grant from the National Science Foundation, another one, and it's in education, and I'm trying to use it for engineering education. So there was this researcher, his name is Perry, and he came up with this theory or this concept, and he said that when a student comes in, his personality is dualistic, which means either something is right or something is wrong. because what is
Binary thinker कहते हैं sir, binary thinker.
Yes, binary thinking. All right. So he called it right. He called it dualistic, personality. All right. And then he says, but the essence of education is, as I was mentioning earlier, is to, we know that this person has, in general, their, as you said, binary thinking or dualistic personality. The curriculum should be designed such, and the faculty who is teaching this curriculum should move this person from this dualistic thinking to a pluralistic thinking. That,
Absolutely.
hey, there are many possibilities, there are many solutions. How do you, so that is the challenge of curriculum designers, of professors, as to how they move this person from this point to the other point. And so that is the kind of, I picked up on that and I said, hey, this is something that we have to look at, because, many engineers that we are developing, for example, is that, they have this process and they say, oh, the answer should be 2.98 kilonewtons, and if you don't get that, then the answer is not right. So how do we, change our teaching methodologies? What we are trying to what is the learning outcome, so that they understand that, in other words, the other terminology that we use is open-ended problems, or design problems, that there can be multiple solutions to, this is the problem, how are we going to solve it? There'll be multiple solutions. You may use steel with half an inch sorry, 1/8 of a diameter, and you may use aluminum with, a 1/4 inch diameter. Which one is, both are possible, which one should you use? What are the pros and cons, cost, blah, blah, So, yeah, you're right. But that is the thing, that is the kind of things that I involve myself in my spare time when I'm not conducting, some wind tunnel testing using volumetric PIV systems.
If I share my experience of arts courses, actually, we have been dealing with engineering, maths, and difficult things. But recently, I had done a cartooning course. So just to make my lectures more interesting, making a smiley and everything. So that I really enjoyed that arts course. I mean, so it depends upon the interest. We were never exposed to the arts subjects, but they're really interesting and very, very intuitive, or I mean, they have their own
Agree.
values.
Totally.
And
Sir,
imagine I went for my PhD in Sweden, and the top profession is hair cutting and music and everything. They are in the different direction altogether.
That sounds like a good course to keep the students away from their cell phones, I suppose, right? Social media. Excellent discussion, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I think
my pleasure.
Taking a lot of time of sir. I think we must thank sir. Were very good, and I really enjoyed this, and all the other participants. So we really thank to you, sir, for coming here and sharing. And definitely we'll interact more on this online education and in general education, definitely.
I know Sir Javed is so humble. He is never going to say no to us, and he's going to continue to keep answering our questions. But we should let him go.
Thank you very much, sir. So kind of you. Really appreciate it. So kind.
Well, the pleasure was totally mine, and I've been able to see some familiar faces. I again thank everyone, for giving me this opportunity. I mean, it is an absolute discussion between ourselves. You all are experts in your areas. I have a little bit of experience, but I greatly benefit from everyone else's experience. And as I mentioned, our learning curve, as I was mentioning, is an exponential, and all of us are at the asymptote. We are, pretty much. It doesn't matter where we were, 15 years ago. We are. Most of you are better than me. So I greatly appreciate all the great, discussion that we had. And really, Salahuddin, you're doing a great job in herding us in over here and
It's just because of you people, sir.
Sir Salahuddin, you have to bring him back after a few months.
Sure,
so that
sure,
we
why
can have
not?
another
Definitely.
round of discussion.
We will, inshallah.
On a different
Oh,
topic,
great.
life's journey of Sir Javed.
Maybe, yes.
Oh, sure. That will take you take me till midnight. You know?
Already midnight, sir.
I mean, I just want to, based on this, I just want to tell you, we had, when I was in 102, we had, God bless his soul, Ijaz Rasool Sahab, who was ACS engineering later on. He was his coordinator at that time. And so he was at that time officer in charge of GE flight. I was in aircraft flight. And so at tea break, we would go and sit down with him, Jalal Sadiq and me and Shoaib and a whole bunch of us over there. And so he would sit down, he would ask, we'll get teas and samosas, and then he'd lean back in his chair and he would, pull up his uniform like this, and he would say, well, when I was a pilot officer, and we would say, well, there we go, the next 1 hour is gone. So, yeah, it'll be my absolute pleasure of mine. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Greatly
Thank you.
appreciate it. And God bless you all. Enjoy yourselves and have a great weekend.
Thanks.
Thanks a
Thank you,
lot.
sir.
Thanks a lot.
Shukriya. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
Khuda Hafiz. Assalamu alaikum.